I was never rich, never was, but I had everything a woman needs to sleep in peace. I had a house that smelled of old wood. I had a small pension, but enough. I had the dignity of living in what was mine. Those things seem small when you have them, but when you lose them, you understand they were everything. I raised Mateo on my own. His father left when he was 3 years old, and I learned quickly that crying doesn't pay the bills. I worked in other people's homes for years, cleaning, ironing, cooking for strangers while my son grew up at a neighbor's house. It wasn't what I wanted, but it was what I could do. When he turned 15, I felt a pride that's hard to put into words. He was sharp, articulate, resourceful. I thought I'd done things right. The mistake every mother makes is thinking that because the seed is good, the tree will grow straight. But a tree can also grow crooked depending on which way the wind blows. And the wind that hit Mateo, I didn't see it coming. He changed slowly, the way bad things always happen, gradually, almost invisibly, until one day you look and don't recognize the person standing in front of you. It started with small things. Then came the excuses. Then money going missing from my purse. I pretended not to see it, because a mother's love has that cruelty to it. It prefers the comfortable lie over the truth that breaks your chest open. When the police knocked on my door, it was 4 a.m. I opened it thinking there was some emergency with one of the neighbors. There wasn't. It was about my son, theft, criminal association, words I'd heard on the news my whole life. And that night, they landed inside my living room like a dead bird. I thought I was going to faint, but I stayed on my feet, listened to everything, thanked the officers with embarrassment, closed the door, and went to sit at the kitchen table. I stayed there until the sun came up, unable to move. Not out of despair, but because I didn't know how to react, didn't know what to do, and had never thought something like this could happen to me. In the months that followed, I went to the hearings, paid for a lawyer with money I didn't have, sold things of value, borrowed from people, did what every mother does when she still believes her son can be saved from himself. He was sentenced to 12 years. On the way out of the courthouse, he looked back at me over his shoulder and said everything was going to be okay. I smiled at him, but something inside me didn't believe it. What most people don't know is that when a son goes to prison, the mother serves time too. The difference is that hers has no end date, and there's no one to come visit her. For the first 2 years, I went to the prison every month. I'd get in line as early as 5 a.m, go through searches, hear things I won't repeat, and make my way to him trying to look strong, because I understood early on that if I fell apart, he'd use that as a reason not to take responsibility for himself. I learned to swallow what I felt before I walked into that place. I'd stand in line thinking about anything that would keep me together. It was on the 3rd visit of the 2nd year that I realized my savings were gone. Not all at once. They had been draining away. The visits, money to keep him going in there, the lawyer, medication he needed, this fee, that fee. The prison system has its own invisible economy, and mothers are the central bank of that economy. Nobody says it out loud, but every mother knows. I tried to reorganize, cut what I could, but the pension was small, and the house had needed roof repairs for some time. Then came something I didn't expect. I found out that Mateo, before he was arrested, had taken out debts in my name. Not just one, several. Finance companies I'd never heard of, contracts with my signature that I had never given. By the time I understood the extent of the damage, my credit was ruined, and I owed more than everything I had. I looked into legal help. They told me it was a lengthy process, that I could contest it, but that it would take time and money I didn't have. The house was the last thing to go. It held on for a while, but the debt with interest grew like a weed, and one day the letter arrived that I always knew would come. I lost the house I had bought at 42 years old after a lifetime of saving penny by penny. I walked out of it on a Tuesday afternoon carrying 2 suitcases with a feeling that was neither anger nor sadness. It was an exhaustion so deep it felt physical, like I had aged 10 years in a single day. I went to live with my sister Camilla. She never said anything that hurt me. But I knew the weight of being a guest in someone else's house, even when that someone is your own family. There's a quiet humiliation in not having your own key, in having to ask permission to open the refrigerator, in waking up in the middle of the night, thirsty, and lying there parched so as not to make noise. No one imposed that on me. I imposed it on myself, because when you lose what is yours, you also lose the ease of simply existing anywhere. I stopped visiting Matteo in the 3rd year. It wasn't a decision made in some dramatic moment. It was a weariness that crept in, an account that became impossible to balance, a recognition that I always left those visits emptier than when I arrived. I let the contact fade the way you let a plant die when you stop watering it. No violence, just absence. 8 years later, Camilla's cell phone rang. She answered, paused for a second in silence, and handed me the phone with a worried look. It was him. His voice was different, deeper, slower, with that strange cadence of someone who had spent years speaking softly so as not to be heard. I just listened. He said he had changed, that he'd taken a course in there, that he'd found religion, that he was on a semi-open sentence and would be released soon. He said he needed to see me, that he carried guilt, that he knew what he had done. And then came the part I wasn't expecting, the part that shifted the weight of everything I felt. He told me that he had found out, through a family member who still kept in contact with him, that I had lost the house. And he said something I will never forget for as long as I live. He told me that when he found out, he wrote a letter to the judge laying out everything he had done in my name, taking full responsibility, hoping it might somehow help me. He said the letter never went anywhere, but that he had tried, that he had done it without telling me, without expecting anything in return, when I had already cut off contact, and he had nothing to gain from me anymore. And then something happened that I still can't fully explain. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't tenderness. It was confusion. A vast and honest confusion inside me, because that piece of information didn't fit the image I had spent 8 years building. I needed him to be entirely bad so that my hurt would make sense. I needed him to have no shred of conscience left so that my decision to cut him off would be just. And he, without knowing it, had taken that from me. I stayed silent for a moment, feeling tears fill my eyes. Then I told him I didn't want to receive any more calls. I said it calmly, without raising my voice, without explaining much. He went quiet on the other end. He didn't beg. He didn't push. He said he understood, and he hung up. I handed the phone back to Camilla without saying a word. I went to my room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. I just stayed there, with that new piece of information weighing inside me, not knowing what to do with it. Because there is a kind of pain that is neither suffering nor relief. It's the pain of discovering that the story you told yourself for years was true, just not complete. It's been 2 years since that call. He left prison. I found out through a relative. I don't know where he is. I don't know if he's okay. I didn't ask. Some nights I sleep straight through, and some nights I lie awake thinking about that letter that never went anywhere. And I think about how none of it gives me back the house, doesn't give me back the years, doesn't give me back the lightness I had before all of this. Forgiveness is a word people use as though it were simple, as though it were a decision you make one afternoon and everything changes after that. It isn't, at least not for me. For me, forgiveness, if it ever comes, will come slowly, will come tangled up with resentment and that strange thing that is loving someone and not wanting that person near you. Because I still love Matteo. I never stopped. It's just that love isn't the same as trust, and trust isn't the same as closeness. I learned to separate those things the hard way. Today I wake up early, help Camilla with what I can. I live a very simple life, and I've learned to make peace with that. Not because acceptance is a virtue, but because keeping on is the only protest I have left against everything that happened. I don't know if I did the right thing asking him not to call anymore. That's the truth I carry without resolution. Some days I think yes, that I protected myself the only way I knew how. Some days I think I was a coward. that I was afraid of finding out more things that would complicate what I had already decided to feel. Neither version comforts me. And maybe that's exactly the weight of being the mother of someone who hurt you. You never arrive at a final place. You stay in the middle forever, with no trial and no acquittal. If he calls me again someday, I don't know what I'll do. I don't have that answer, but this is the first time in many years that I've admitted I don't have it, and that it's okay not to.